Welcome to the Nate and Dorin podcast. We are professional videographers based in Vancouver, Canada, and we are here to talk about relevant topics within the video and media industry. I'm Nate, and I run Nate Dixon Media.
And I am Dorin, the videographer, solo entrepreneur offering video production services. And today we are going to look at a couple of lessons we've learned along the years, both as employees and as freelancers, and discuss tips and tricks or ways to advance, both if you're working for a company or you're working for yourself. So it's going to be an interesting topic. It rolls off really nicely with that previous one we did about how to make a living as a videographer. So, Nate, why don't you start us off with a lesson you learned as an employee?
Okay, so one that I definitely struggled with and that I recommend that everybody take a look at is, I guess the pitfall would be not separating your work and your personal life. So don't have your email linked to your phone so you're getting buzzes from your boss if they happen to have a stroke of inspiration at 1 a.m. and they just start pinging you nonstop. And then you roll over and your eyes are all bleary and you're trying to read this email, and then it's just going to be bouncing around in your head. It's just not good for your mental health. And if you have to quickly do stuff, if oh, can you just quickly do this, it's it's fine once or twice, but if it becomes a habit, working for free on your own time like that, it can really add up, and it can kind of set a precedent that it's not accounted for, it's not healthy, and it's just them taking advantage of you potentially.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you went
guess,
into that.
yeah. I guess the first reaction you would have when you're not expecting something like this, your instinct is like, I can't say no to the boss. Like, I'm not at work, I'm at home. I'm not supposed to be working right now. That's Monday. But if your boss reaches out to you, it's like this really tense feeling of like, I can't just say no. They'll be pissed. They'll be like, but no, look up the law if you're unsure of it. We're not legal experts, but based on what we know in the area that we live in, uh, your boss reaching out to you after work hours is beyond your contract, beyond your agreement, beyond the scope of work. Um, so, some people think they can collect brownie points. Like, ooh, if I do enough favors for my boss, maybe I'll get recognized. The issue I have with that is it's a maybe. Like Nate said, you might be setting a precedent. Your boss might not be on the mindset of like, oh man, you're helping me out so much. I'm going to be so grateful to you. They might be in the mindset of like, oh yeah, you're a hard worker, and yeah, I can always reach out and just bug you about stuff. And that's not a good spot to be in. I mean, if you want to be there, fine. But if you value your free time and your sanity, one clear example I have, I was on vacation and I had my work email connected.
Uh-oh, I think I might know where this is going.
Yeah. And one day before, the last day before the vacation was over, we got an angry email from the boss, like completely like destroying me and my team. And that ruined, like, that's all I could think about on that last day of vacation. I could not enjoy it anymore. And it's like, so, like, that's, I think, the worst possible case. It's not that you're just like time off and home, your time off and vacation. Like, from at that point, I'm like, yeah, time to like disconnect work email. Um, so I can 100% agree with that one. That was a great one to start off with. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I've heard people, and I've heard bosses actually encourage this. Like, some bosses are awesome and they completely understand what the relationship is supposed to be like, and they don't take advantage of coworkers. And they actually have, like, my mother's workplace actually has a sign in their office that says, "Is just a job. stop thinking about it after you leave from here. Like, it's
Mm,
just your job. Do what you can while you're here. When it's done, just just go on with your life. And I'm like, that is awesome. That is, that's not saying, oh, be careless about your job. No, it's setting a clear expectation. Like, hey, when you're here, give it your best. But after that, please take care of yourself. So I think that's what it's supposed to be like.
mm,
Um, and speaking of emails, I think one I would underline is just communication issues in general.
mm,
Like if your bosses or your colleagues have issues communicating and um your work depends on that, eh, don't tolerate it for too long, because it's like, do I bring up this issue with who do I bring it up? Do I confront my coworker? Or it's not confronting you're kindly asking them, like, hey, can you answer your email? But if you're like you're a bit more non-confrontational, Nate, am I correct in remembering that?
yeah, I don't like confrontation.
Yeah. But can you say that your non-confrontational personality has put you in a few awkward spots before, where you're just like stuck in a situation and you have to choose between, do I become uncomfortable and potentially escalate a situation, or do I risk like getting a solution?
Mm, yeah, there's been some hard moments where that's come to bite me for sure. And the thing is, I sometimes when we're in the middle of that, where you're in between two people, you're like the go between, or you're waiting on something else, and your boss is expecting it from you, but you have to wait for some other person to do their job. It's easy for you to take on that stress that's totally out of your control. So if you're waiting on somebody else, you know, don't be sweating bullets and like, oh no, my boss is gonna get mad at me or something like that. If you are just doing your part and the other part is out of your control, you know, you have a total license to like not get all crazy, flustered, and stressed out. And I've definitely had that happen before
Mm-hmm.
to myself. And that was a mistake that I made. I was like, oh no, we're not going to make that deadline that the boss told me. It's like, no, if you don't get your parts, all the parts that you need on time, then you're don't overwork yourself and like stay up till 3 a.m. trying to quickly finish it just so your boss can check it off and say, oh yeah, we finished it on time in like his
Mm-hmm.
meeting,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. But I'll put an asterisk there. There is a few situations where, depends on your personality, but there might be a few situations where it's not good. Like, unless you're able to mentally detach that way and be like, yeah, so the company's gonna suffer because this is not gonna happen, and the other guy that's responsible is gonna get in trouble, but I'm okay because it's my thing. Like, that totally works most of the time, but a few times I've noticed that, like, it takes my enjoyment out of work. Like, knowing that I have colleagues that do not deliver or are not paying attention or not qualified, um, you know, it does get to a point where you don't have pride in your work anymore. Like, I've had stuff that I've worked on that, because other people are handling it, is even to this day not produced.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just embarrassing, man. It's like I would never go back to working in that type of environment where it's like, it's an awesome project and I do my part and the other people are just like not doing their part. And it's just like, yeah, I got paid, but I have nothing to show for it at the end of the day. Like, if I were to go get hired by another employer, I would have to like ask to show like unfinished product stuff, which might discredit me even more. Like, or the company that I was working for, the new employer might be like, okay, so why is this not completed? When did you film this? Oh, 5 years ago. uh,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah. One really hard lesson that I learned was just going back to that, like separating work and personal life. Like, it's just a job. Like, that doesn't mean you don't care or you're not like invested in doing your expected effort. But anything beyond that is very hard to like quantify or justify as a like unless you're like morally aligned with the company. Like, let's say like whatever, you're all for being vegan and you advocate for not killing animals, and you would volunteer and give extra for a animal shelter. You know, that's like different. But I'm talking about just like you start working for this workplace where you're not emotionally connected with the what you
Product or
call it.
service?
Sorry.
The product or service?
Yeah, no, but like the message of the company, or like it's doing something that's moral, on a moral high ground, you know? Like we're
Mm,
we're making the planet better, we're making society better. Like what I don't know what the term is that I'm looking for.
mm. I think
Um,
I know what you're saying, though.
yeah, activism or something like that,
Yeah.
maybe.
Hmm.
Like kind of like jobs that are involving activism and require people to be passionate about the topic. I can see that, but if it's not that, some like I've heard so many stories, and I've been in a few experiences where the bosses try and butter up the relationship and say we're like a family here, we're like friends, we're like brothers, we're like XYZ, like anything but a boss, right? Anything to
Mm.
get you chummy, to be friendly, like hey, since we're friends, since we're family, then they can like kind of guilt you into doing some stuff voluntarily. But every time that I've heard or seen one of these stories unfold, the bottom line is they'll throw it in your face when you expect them to hold up to that. They'll be like, "Well, this is a business. I'm the CEO. You can't demand this of me." Oh, I thought we're family. Like, mm, I appreciate that, but this is a business, and this is how we run things here. Like, okay, well, that
Then it turns
is,
into you're not like brothers. It's like they're the parent, you're the kid.
yeah,
Listen and obey to me. Do
yeah,
as I say, not as I do.
yeah.
That
No,
kind of
they turn
thing.
into bullies.
Well, we
So
can't generalize everywhere, but in
no,
the
no,
stories that we've heard,
like I said,
and
yeah, like what I've heard from people and what I've seen a few times. Yeah, I've like even, and this is not just for companies, even partnerships. There's like a running joke, like no ship sinks faster than a partnership.
mm,
You know, that saying's there for a reason. Like, yeah, we can totally attach this to freelance and creating a business. Sometimes, if you try and capitalize on a friendship to start a business, you know, in the long term, there's plenty of examples out there of like things just falling apart. Like I don't even know where to start to like point some out, but uh, like even music bands like crumble and reassemble and get new members, and that those are really like relationship revolving a little bit. It's not just like, oh, do you have a good voice, you know?
mm,
But anyway, that's the only example I could think of right off the bat. But you get what I mean.
mm-hmm.
So let's bring it back to actual like companies, and as an employee, is there anything else, any other lesson you would advise people that want to become videographers and want to get hired to work for someone's company? What should they watch out for?
Um, it's hard to say like what you're doing to get hired versus how you should maybe act once you're already hired.
Yeah.
You know, um, let me think about that. Um,
Well, I got one for you. While you're
okay,
thinking about that,
sure.
um, it kind of comes in line with what we already said, but I'll emphasize it a bit more. Toxic work environments like are a thing. Like like I know somebody who literally was working a position. Another person got fired. They took over that responsibility from that other person. So now they're doing two things from two departments, and they didn't get any salary raise because of the new responsibility and new time investment. And also, after a year had passed, they still didn't get a raise. So that is like textbook toxic workplace where you're just getting worked at and you're just expecting like, oh, I'm doing so much for this company, surely they'll notice. No, you need
Mm,
to anticipate a toxic work environment and start having discussions early on. I've had discussions with companies at interviews where literally it's on the table right from the interview. Um, like, okay, you're going to start off this way. After the probation months is going to be this. Um, and yearly we'll do this, but if anything gets added on, we'll renegotiate throughout the year. So like I remember when I first started working, I felt very awkward even after 1 year asking for a raise because it's just like I guess that was my non-confrontational um side of me. Like I don't know, I just felt weird asking for a raise. Like I knew I 100% deserve it and it's like normal. But it just felt like I don't know, not embarrassing, but like I don't know, intimidated. I would just
mm,
be intimidated by the person that could just easily say no or maybe even fire me. Although I know that you can't just randomly do that. But when you're a kid and it's your first job, you might not know some things and just be intimidated. So yeah,
mm-hmm.
just not being rewarded, not being paid your actual wage. We talked about that in our previous podcast. Um, there's also just not being like valued and not like setting higher expectations than what you originally agreed for. Like let's say the company expands and gives you responsibilities and expects you to learn new things. It's like okay, but you're still at your wage from a year ago. So it just doesn't click. It doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. You're not being compensated fairly.
Yeah, for
You're just,
for for adding skill set and adding to the company value, expanding with the company.
mm-hmm.
I bet
Okay.
you if the if the manager takes on responsibility, he's gonna get a pay increase. But what about you?
Yep. Yeah, that triggered a thought in me is sometimes you okay, I'll let you compose yourself there.
Yeah, no.
Um, one thing that I definitely have done before that I wouldn't recommend is overworking yourself to impress. So it doesn't have to be necessarily a toxic work environment for you to do this. Like you could really respect and enjoy working for a certain company and the bosses, and you don't want to let them down, and they're treating you well, they're really appreciating your work, but sometimes you can just go a little too far and overwork yourself to try and impress them.
Hmm.
And kind of tying in with what you said earlier, it's no guarantee that you'll actually get anything out of that. And as an employer, you're just a cog in a machine. You're not working for yourself. This isn't building up your brand. You are working and giving to this company and to the CEO. And if you're putting yourself out there and overextending yourself and, you know, doing more jobs than what you're originally supposed to, or you're working really long hours, unpaid or not paid overtime, or,
Hmm.
whatever,
Hmm.
or let's say you're banking vacation, but then you can't even use that vacation. Oh, sorry, it's too busy. And then you're just like, well, then what am I doing this for?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've stayed up way too late some
Hmm.
nights doing some video work for some bosses to save their butts and
Right.
to
So
meet their deadlines.
yeah. So let's say a company has an expectation and this is the deadline, but in order for you to achieve it, you have to like like, yeah, do extra hours and extra this, and like maybe work twice as fast. Like, you force yourself to overwork and maybe overlook details, make mistakes, and then who's gonna get blamed? You are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, you need to bring it up with your manager, your employer, your supervisor, whoever is the person in the chain of command, and say like, hey, this is not realistically doable at this rate. Maybe that previous project, because it was simpler, or it was like a 1 hour thing, but this is a 3 hour thing, and I need to make a bunch of edits because of a bunch of mistakes, from whoever was filmed. Yeah, so yeah, there's so many scenarios where you can apply overworking in the like at work. So this is not just your free time or overtime, but even
Mm.
at work. I remember at one point we had a manager change, and I tried to uh, help the manager impress his supervisor by,
Mm.
I'm gonna just work like even harder to make sure that this transition goes smoothly. No, in hindsight, like, no, I was stupid. Like,
Mm.
nobody asked that for me, and um, my effort did nothing, because the supervisor had no issue with the rate things were going. Actually, things slowed down considerably, and the supervisor was still okay with that. So yeah, and I know, like, I have one more thing to add here, and then we can move on to like um like how to advance yourself as an employee within a company. I just want to end off with one last lesson that I haven't learned personally on my end, but I've seen someone go through this, and they've invested so much in a company to the point where it's something that's not non-recoverable. So like, this person sold off some of their gear to this employer, and like, I think less than a year the relationship got sour, and there you go. You don't get your gear back, and you didn't work at this workplace long enough to make it worthwhile giving up um you know your possessions, basically. Like, that person was not able to go back into doing business for themselves because they didn't have the gear anymore.
Yeah, and you can get sucked into that if you really believe in the company's mission, like you were mentioning earlier. So like if you're, vegan, you want to make that vegan video as best as it can be. So you
Yeah, they
you bring in
slaughtered
all
the
your
cows.
gear,
Yeah.
you sell it all, or like, you know, you rent it for free
Mm-hmm.
to the company, and they use it, and then you don't get it back.
Yeah.
But
I
you
don't
can really screw
know.
yourself that way.
Yeah, I don't know why. There's this recent thing that happened. Cardi B or something. One of her friends needs surgery, and she's like super rich. She could just give her friend money, but instead she like posted on Twitter like, "Oh, here's a GoFundMe. Can we help raise money for this person?" And like, all those people that did do that, it's like, why? This person
Mm.
isn't doing this for their own friend, and she has like 10 times the amount of money everyone else has. So I don't know why. I
Wow.
just wanted to throw that out there, because that's like very similar from a company's perspective. Like, a company will only benefit from you investing stuff into it, and it'll stay there with the company. That extra time and sweat you put in for that project, they profited out of it. You got paid the same hourly. Maybe you got recognized, maybe you didn't. You give equipment, or you invest ideas, or like, let's say you're thinking of problem solving an issue at the workplace, but you're doing it from home. Well, no, now your boss might expect you to do that, and they might, like, oh, I don't need to try and fix this thing because this coworker is just gonna get up and do it by himself.
Mm. Or why are you researching this on company time? Just research it on your own time,
Oh
and then
yeah,
spend
yeah.
hours at home.
New camera with new workflow. Yeah, just look it up over the weekend. I've been told that. And guess what? I'm
Mm.
like, I'm going to research that on Monday, because there's a term for it. It's on-site training or workplace training. You're supposed to teach me. If you got a new camera, you got a new thing. Guess what? Or if if you're not qualified to teach me, whoever's qualified to teach me a YouTube tutorial or a class online, I'm gonna do that at the workplace because it's for the workplace.
Mm.
So, yeah, let's wash out that bad taste with what's an example of how you can advance in your position, Nate?
Okay. Well, one thing that you can do, it never hurts to ask for things. So, for example, if there's extra skills that you feel would be beneficial for your position, it might actually that benefit you and the company, a win-win. They might actually be able to pay for some of that if there's some formal training that you want to get.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so a lot of companies have these things in place, but they might not openly advertise it or like remind you constant emails, hey, we got this, they've just got it set aside, and you need to approach your supervisor or manager and say, hey, here's the use case, this is how it would improve my skills, this is how much it is, this is when it is, can you guys help me out with this? And a lot of the time you might be pleasantly surprised with the results of just asking these questions
Mm-hmm.
instead of just, oh yeah, that's out of my price range, so I guess I won't do that.
Yeah, above my pay grade. I knew a guy that loved to say that. Yeah, I know how to do this, but I'm not gonna do it. It's above my pay grade. Like that's a very like throw it in your face response. Whereas, like you said, you could just turn that into an opportunity. Either say like, I'd be interested to learn this. Would you guys be interested in training me for this? And because you're
Mm,
trained and qualified for something, that's your bargaining chip for instead, like let's say you're a marketing person and you know something about video, and this company wants to start doing video. They could hire a junior video editor for minimum wage, or they can give you $2 extra per hour and you do it because you approach them that way. Like, hey, I can do this. You don't need to hire another person. I can do this, but because it's an extra skill set above what I'm currently doing, give me a little something, and that's
mm,
that's like you said, it's a win-win.
mm-hmm,
So yeah, I completely agree with that. Just in general, like I think an employer will appreciate if an employee says like, oh, yeah, I'm interested in taking more responsibilities, or what are my paths to advance?
mm,
Because like unless it's a small like very small privately owned like or family owned business, they might like not want you getting involved in higher positions. But a proper like medium to big size company will value people that are like what's it called, like manager material, or like that want to take a heavy um, responsibility load. Those are valuable people because those are the people that get stuff done, and
mm-hmm.
big companies will acknowledge and reward that.
Yeah, but you have to communicate that clearly and keep track of exactly what you've done so you don't fall into that overworking yourself
Yeah,
with no
or just
gain trap.
assuming, doing stuff and assuming you get noticed. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think good communication is a big part of that,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to show tangible results or keep track of everything that you actually do so that you can back up, actually, this is all the extra stuff and this is how much it made the company or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
goes a lot farther than, oh, but I stayed up a few hours last night working on this spreadsheet. They're like, okay, good, it was due today, so great.
Oh my, yeah. Um, but yeah, sometimes people will be in a scenario where their company is maybe set in stone with what they do. They're not interested in advancing or expanding. So maybe that's one way to advance your career is to look for other opportunities elsewhere. And I think the best time to do that is actually while you're still working for a company. So like if you apply for another position, they're gonna ask you, what are you currently doing? Are you unemployed? And if you're unemployed, that's fine. Or you're like looking for a new workplace. You just like finished 1 week ago with this other workplace. But if you say, oh, I'm currently working here and I've been working here for this long, but I'm looking for something that's gonna fully use my skill set, that's a different impression that you're laying
Mm,
out. It's like, hey, these guys have me and these guys are happy with me. I'm still working here. But I would love to work for you. Are you interested in a person like me? So, um, because definitely my old mentality would have been to like, okay, if I'm done with this workplace, like I want to be done with it. But um, you know, it's kind of it's hard. Like you're technically not supposed to during work time at a workplace be using that to look for other workplaces, right? But there's
mhm.
breaks. There's the lunch break or your whatever your coffee break where you can like accommodate that kind of stuff, or just your free time. But I was referring to like if you're answering a call or an interview.
Mm,
So, but in order to do this, and this is another thing that I didn't do because I was very content with the workplace I was at. Um, you don't know what opportunities are out there unless you're monitoring the industry, right? So let's say you just get hired to work somewhere, but you want to step it up. Keep looking on the market. Wait for that opportunity. When you see it, jump on it. You know, engage with it. Don't wait until like, okay, I'm bored of this place. Now I'm gonna start looking for stuff. Like, maybe it was gonna happen like a month after or a year after. You don't know.
yeah, that's something that I definitely always was on the lookout for.
Hmm.
So I try not to stagnate
Hmm.
because that switching jobs is the quickest and most reliable way to increase your pay.
Hmm.
It's not staying in the same company and climbing the ladder. It's switching companies to a different job. Um,
Hmm.
so that right there is a great reason to keep your keep your job notifications on, see what's out there, see what's happening, and that can also kind of cement um, what your position is worth. So if you see consistently jobs that are posting for more than what you're making at your current job, benefits and everything else weighed, then you can either use that and approach your manager and say, hey, look at all these other positions, look what I do. Or you
Hmm.
try and jump on some other stuff and create some opportunities for yourself that way.
Hmm. And like yeah, again, in order to do that, you should also have your like resume or demo reel like up to date. So like
Mm.
I went through a phase where like yeah, I was content at this workplace, so I'm not like I didn't do anything, and then after like 5 6 years, then I'm like yeah, I should make a demo reel. And it's like yeah, but in those 6 years, maybe if I had a demo reel every year and I was looking for opportunities and I would have applied for them, in 6 years for sure there would have been something better.
Yeah, probably.
Oh well.
Such is life, Dorin.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anything else as an employee. You got any other ones?
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah.
Um,
Look for
Obviously,
opportunities either within your company or out. It's pretty
I
simple.
think I think we could kind of come across a bit salty about being employees. We're like, don't do more than you're asked, and everybody who says their family is lying, but really we're just trying
Oh,
to share
they're not necessarily
potential
lying,
pitfalls.
but it's a bait that might
Hmm.
be a juicy worm or it might be a hook. Who knows? Well, no, that was the point of this subject. It's lessons we've learned, like the hard lessons, not the.
Yeah.
We're not addressing like how cozy and comfy is it to work for a workplace. Like, oh, obviously, I can tell you like some of the best experiences I've had, um, at a workplace, like a workplace, um, field trip. and they're paying you get paid for that day, and they take you out to some place where like you visit and learn something that's like a team bonding
Mm.
day, you know? Like, oh, let's go play laser tag. Pizza, and it's a paid day today. Like, yeah, like I haven't experienced this, but I know some people that like
Like,
we could talk about that, but that's not gonna help anybody with what they can do. This is just
mhm.
something that companies might offer or might not, and that's out of your control. You can try and look for that and apply for that, but we're just purposely like picking like the not so pretty things to talk about, but very
Yeah.
practical. Like, I don't know. I wish when I was starting out, like I knew all of this stuff.
Well, why don't we flip it over to Freelancer now?
Oh,
More
that's
your
that's a big
your
one too.
wheelhouse. Yeah. What
Yeah.
I'm sure you learned a lot in the first year that you were doing freelance,
Oh,
Dorin.
holy cow, dude! I would need a 5 hour podcast to cover it all, but I'll try and be concise and organized. Number one thing is communication. Looking back at the last like 4 years, communication is hitting my mic and all that. Communication is like so important. I don't even
You're
know how
speechless.
I it's there's so much to compress, but let
But
me
to sum
just
it up in a few
yeah,
tips.
have
Yeah.
everything written. You
Okay.
maybe you're really good with your memory. I'm not. And especially if you do get busy, which I hope you do like as soon as possible if you're starting out freelance, you might, maybe this is just me, but I assume other people will start like mixing information that they've from discussions over the phone with clients. Like a client that called you 3 weeks ago will call you again and like, hey, so let's whatever. They follow up with you, and you're like, I don't remember why I quoted this person, and I know I gave 4 different quotes in the last week, and I don't remember what I discussed with this person. So it's like this awkward, like, yeah, yeah. So you're still in agreement with that quotation I gave you? And if they're like, oh, I don't remember, then you're screwed. You're like, okay. So I've made it a habit to have everything written. If you have a phone call and you have a verbal agreement, guess what? Follow up with a written email summarizing everything you just talked about, restating it. Like immediately. Don't wait until the next day. I forget. So I'm like
Mm.
immediately following up like, "Hey John, it was nice talking with you. Thank you for the opportunity to um, work together with you or for your company, whatever. As discussed, you're interested in a half day with the 2 camera setup and 2 wireless mic, and this is the rate that you had agreed with. If you have any questions, let me know. If if that is not what you discussed on the phone, they will promptly respond and correct you, which is even better. There you go. Communication issue resolved on the spot and not on the day of filming. Um,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
it just it can get so much more complicated than that. Um, like because like if you have texts on your phone,
Mhm.
like yeah, it's on your phone. Like take a screenshot. Like I don't know if you switch phones and you don't import text, then you're kind of like or like let's say something happens to your phone, you drop it and water damage, and you didn't get a chance to back it up. It's like great. I don't have with email you don't have to worry about that because it's online. But with text, it's risky. Like yeah, it's written there, you see it, but you don't have a backup of it anywhere. Um, and the biggest branch off of communication, the most important pedestal, I think, when you become a serious freelancer and you're trying to build up reputation and clientele, is contracts, written contracts specifically.
Written.
Yes, you'll start to develop a terms of service based off of issues that you've had happen. There's those memes like don't put makeup on the alligators, and it's like, what happened here? Why is this sign posted here? Who did this? Why?
Oh,
It's that meme, the Ant-Man meme.
okay. I didn't understand what you were saying, but now I understand.
Yeah, no, is
Like
this
weird
meme?
laws,
Yeah,
and
is
you're
this
like,
meme
why do these
format?
exist?
Yeah, where there's this precedent, and you're just like in disbelief, like somebody did what? What happened here? How is this possible? That's your terms of service.
Mm.
Like, yeah. Um, so I don't know. I could just keep on going about communication, but I think that's enough to get the gist of it.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, I think that gets the gist of it. That was something that I had to. I took that tip from you actually, and yeah, I didn't really run into the same pitfalls that you did. I remember you sharing like you quoted someone for like an 8 hour day, I believe it was, but you didn't specify that those 8 hours had to be in a row. So they like separated out like, okay, can you film me 2 hours first thing in the
Yeah, no,
morning?
no, yeah. It was a half day. It was 4 hours, and
Okay.
I'm like, oh, it's just a half day, and it's like, no, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour before noon, 1 hour after noon, and 1 hour in the evening, because of
Effect.
it was like they're a day in the life of for some workout athlete thing. I don't know.
Yeah. So I remember I didn't have a terms of service, but I definitely made sure that that was a that was established.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and I remember you wanted to pass on a client to me. Remember that?
Tell me. Oh,
The music video?
oh man, the communication there. That was like
That was a
the opposite
prime
of not enough.
example of,
Uh,
yeah, like I know because I can relate. Like if I was just starting out and somebody would be telling me this stuff, I'd be like, okay, buddy, you're overthinking. You're like, this is too much. But you came with this client, and it's like, do you want to take this music video? And I started asking questions. I'm like, okay, what's the budget? What's this? What's this? What's this? And then it's like, oh, they expect you to rent out a Mustang. And I'm like, why is he not doing that? He needs to be doing that. Who's driving the Mustang? Oh, he's just going to be around it. He doesn't actually drive it. I'm like, oh, okay. So if that's on you, then you have to be aware that you're liable for that. If this guy accidentally scratches it, your insurance is liable for that. And then you're like, oh.
yeah, made me definitely think. And he didn't even tell me at first that he didn't have a license. He's like, "Yeah, I want to have this cool sports car in the music video," and I'm just assuming he's going to be driving it. And then a
Yeah.
few phone
You-
calls
You're
later, he's
already
like,
envisioning, like, oh, yeah, sports car. This is going to be amazing.
"Yeah,
No,
I forgot to
ask,
ask."
ask. Even if it sounds dumb, ask him everything. Who's going to be doing what with the sports car? When? How? For how long? Who's getting it?
Yep. Hmm.
So, yeah, communication.
Yeah, that was a big one. Another one we kind of talked about, I think we touched a lot on it, was just undervaluing and undercharging.
Oh, yeah, we talked about
I
that
think
last
we've kind
time.
of beaten that dead horse, so to speak.
It was yeah, undervalue, undercharge, and undercut. But I won't re-explain the difference. You watch episode 13.
Yeah, watch the back catalog.
Not 13.5, 13.
Yeah, don't make assumptions. Dorin just mentioned that. That's a good point. Don't assume that if a client wants a car in the video, that they know how to drive a car.
You know what? With assumptions, again, it's gonna sound like I'm super exaggerating, but like talking with videographers that have had like 10 plus years in the industry, it's totally normal and they get it. So, young, junior, aspiring entrepreneur, please listen very carefully. Pick your client's brain. Don't assume that you understand their vision unless you actually like go through it meticulously through their brain files. Like if they say, "Oh yeah, and I want to have um the logo animate towards the camera." You're like, "Yeah, okay, I know what that looks like." No, make them draw it out or make them find an example of someone else doing it. And the logo coming at the camera is actually coming from underneath, not from far away closer to the camera. That's what they meant. And that's whatever an easy fix, but if they're explaining something that's creative and filming and you have one shot at it, guess what? You need to fully understand what they're saying. So, my technique that I've developed, well, that I've also kind of picked and learned from other people, and I've developed my own style for it, is to not sound too dumb or to not make the
Mm.
client feel dumb. Be like, what does that look like coming at the camera? Can you describe it to me? You don't do it that way. Instead, you try and rephrase what they said through your vision and be a bit more explicit. So you can just pick up what they said and just rephrase it real quickly. So if they say, yeah, and I want the logo to just come at the camera, and you're like, oh yeah, yeah, that's that. I can totally envision that. That's cool. So it's like coming from far away and it'll be blurred out, and you give them some technical details to make it sound like you're not trying to like pick his brain. And then it'll like come in focus as it's coming to the camera, and they'll be like, "Well, no, it's not going to be far away. I like it's coming like from underneath," and it's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, 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 I get you now."
Mm.
So that's there's a diplomacy, tactical diplomacy in obtaining information, and actually. I'll give a quick side example. I employ this as well when a client is using a term that I do not know. I don't know if I've gotten to explain this one to you yet, Nate, but
No, I don't think so.
here's a new one for you. So I was working with
Okay.
somebody like either a sound guy, or you might end up working with people that are video but different industry like TV or broadcast or sports, and they might use a different term than what you use. So for
Mm.
example, one person said, yeah, and it'll be two cameras, tele, which meant teleprompter, but I clued in on that one because of context. Tele to read the text, so the context sometimes gives you a clue. But then they said, um, and the VT, you will supply us a VT. So I'm on the phone with this client, so I'm just like, yeah, 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 and I quickly pivot to a different question. Sorry, let's quickly. I want to ask you. So, where is the location again? Like the exact address. Like I pivot away and ask them something else as I'm
Mm.
googling VT slang video, and the only thing I could find is it stands for videotape. This was an older person, and they said VT
Mm.
for videotape, but it didn't make any sense for the context of our conversation. So even though I thought I found it, I was unsure.
Mm.
And what I ended up doing, without sounding like an idiot and losing this client, right? Because he's also a video person, so he might clue in that I'm like not knowing this term. I might be fully capable of doing what he's asking, but I don't know the specific term, and I don't want to make a bad impression, right? So
Mm.
I just rephrase the question in a way where I force him to explain it to me. So I asked him,
Mm.
with the VT, there's many ways to do it. How do you prefer? What's your specific style that you like that? And I cooked it up on the spot, and I was trying not to laugh because I was like, holy cow, that was really smart. Pat myself on the back, but it got me the answer. He's like, oh, when you set up the live stream, I just need to see him, so I don't care how you do it. I'm like, oh, VT is like, for him, it meant live stream. Like, he wanted to see what I'm filming live from his, location. So then
Mm.
I knew every time he said VT, I'm like, yeah, don't worry, I got the VT hooked up. Don't you worry about it. But yeah,
Ah,
no, and that was a
okay.
big paying client too. And I when he said that term, I knew instantly. I was like, pivot, Google search. If I screw this term up, and I'm like, can you explain to me what VT is? Like, if I would have said that, I think
Mm.
he would have looked for someone else. Or he might have, just cut me some slack if I impressed him enough with the other stuff. But yeah, assumptions and reading your client's brain. There's an example of reading your client's brain for something that you don't understand, and you'll get that
Picking your client's brain, not reading your client's brain, right?
picking. Yeah, like yeah, ESL. Like you
Okay.
are reading. Like how do I say this? Like their words are explaining something that's a different visual in your head than in their head. So you have to like
Mm.
you have to see the visual in their head somehow. So that's what kind of what I'm getting at.
Okay.
And this is obviously for clients where they kind of have a creative say in it. If you're like full creative, then you probably don't have to worry about this. I talked a lot. How about you? What's another lesson you've learned in your freelance time, Nate?
Hmm. Well, oh, here's one. When you're setting a deadline for editing something,
Ooh.
always
Hmm.
give yourself extra time than what you think you need. Because when you set yourself a deadline, you're like, oh yeah, I can finish it by that time, and you think, oh, that'll be a nice tight turnaround. That's when the curveballs come in. You know,
Mm.
the client decides they want a different style or they don't like the music, and you have to retime the whole edit. Sometimes people don't realize that that takes a lot of work to do. Or if
Mm.
they just, oh, can you just change that thing? And you're like, well, now I gotta re-render the entire video. Like, sometimes the people you're working with just have no clue how long things take. And then there's also uh, difficulties that you can have with hardware or software. Adobe introduces a new bug in the Premiere, or in my...
Purpose. You made it sound like they purposely do that. Like, newest version of Adobe, the crash 1 minute before the autosave bug. Classic.
uh, or in my case, my PC just decided to start shutting down every 5 minutes
I
every
can't
time I tried
believe
to export a video.
I can't believe your PC is doing that. Like what, 2 weeks after my motherboard died?
Yeah, isn't that funny? Like,
Yeah.
brand new everything, 3 months old, and then it's just like, actually, I don't want to work for you. So now I'm back on the laptop, and of course, like in the repair shop right now, they call me and they're like, so yeah, so we've been doing stress tests for 2 days, and we've been trying to export out of Premiere, and we can't find any issues at all. And I'm like, are you
But is
kidding
it
me?
still doing the thing?
They can't get it to like shut down, and like
Oh
it
my.
was shutting down like constantly no matter what I was doing the whole like day and a half before I decided to like take it
Dang.
in. And they're like, oh, we can't find any issues with it.
Right, but there's a fine line between that and what you can charge a client, right? Because this is like your issue. It's not their project
Right.
unless you discover it's their project causing that. But again, then you're responsible for how you captured and how you're dealing with the footage, so it's still kind of you. But I
Well,
get
it's
what
still
you're
you,
saying.
but
You're
account for that
saying
stuff in the deadline.
you're saying like, okay, I shot a 2 hour interview. It's gonna take me 4 hours to edit if I'm like really like fast and like So you charge only for 4 hours instead of like eight to a lot for. Well, I have to review the clip. I have to make sure the export turned out fine. I have to double check that the audio exported fine. I have to upload the file. So that's
Yeah, you
kind of
got to
what you
build all
mean.
that into it.
Like the
Yeah.
client might
So,
ask for a few revisions, a few changes that, it's a 2 minute fix, but it's another half hour export.
hmm,
So that's what you mean, right?
yeah, build
Mm.
all that, those stuff that you are most likely going to happen, like revisions, but
Mm.
also account for the potential things that you don't see that are going to happen. Like
Yeah.
your files aren't linking up properly, or you're having
Mm-hmm.
hardware issues. So
Mm-hmm.
just kind of have that in the back of your mind when you're quoting for things
Mm-hmm.
and when you're setting deadlines.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, like even just time wise, not just quoting wise. Like yeah, I've had a month ago I had a super stressful period where I didn't double book, but I overbooked myself to the point where I filmed four things consecutively, and all four things were supposed to get done next week. And guess what? I didn't have time to do all four. So
Hmm.
that was my problem for giving um, unrealistic, not a deadline because they didn't impose that deadline, the client, but I gave them like, oh yeah, I'll be done in a week. So I gave them
Hmm.
unrealistic expectation, or what's the word I'm looking for? um,
Unrealistic expectation?
like I gave him um what's it called, like estimated deliverable state.
That sounds like just random jargon.
It is, because that's what I told clients. Like,
Uh,
when do you think you'll have this done? Like, oh, the estimate date is this next week, Thursday. Yeah, no problem. Yeah,
mm,
if I had only 4 days to work on your thing, but I have four other things to work on, and I'm like, I had to email everyone and be like, project's not gonna be done for another week. Actually, sorry, I'm really busy. So,
oh,
so that's
and you
my
should
fault.
also, yes, you should also give deadlines for feedback. So, you can work backwards, right? So
100%.
if this project is due in 2 weeks, I need to give you the rough draft 1 week from today. You have 24 hours to give me feedback on that so I have time to implement that. Because otherwise, you could wake up and, like, the morning of the deliverable, oh, yeah, by the way, can you change those things? And you're like, you didn't look at the email like a week ago when I sent it?
I
And that can bite
actually
you.
have a client that we did that right now. We filmed Friday, and the I had to upload the raw footage right away over the weekend so they can like look at time codes and give me which portion of the script they want me to cut in. And they were supposed to
Mhm.
get that to me by today. And I'm checking my email and it's not here, so they're running behind schedule. But we had that conversation of like, okay, we're gonna get you what do you need to cut by Monday? You need to cut it Tuesday, so we have a first look Wednesday. We'll come with a revision Thursday, and Friday is the final edit. So yeah, it's gonna be an exciting week. So yeah, deadlines. One thing that's kind of interesting as a lesson as a freelancer is like chit chatting and trying to like buddy up and warm up to the client. Sometimes you just like I don't know, maybe this is my social awkwardness or like me not knowing how to lead a conversation professionally. But sometimes I start sharing knowledge that the clients will not know how to interpret correctly.
Mm.
So like I don't know if you've ever had this, but like sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, that was such a good take," and then I like tell the client like, "Ooh, you want to see? You want to see the raw footage?" And they don't know that, okay, ignore the first shaky 10 seconds because that's me getting into position. Cut from there to there, that's the sweet shot. So instead, they see this shaky stuff and they're like, I don't like this at all. I'm like, wait, it's getting to it. Okay, here. And then they're like already like off, but I have to like explain what a cut is and how to envision it creatively. And then I'm like, I'm an idiot. This person hired me to do this. They don't need to know this. So unless the client specifically requests like, oh, can I see how I look or how I sound or how that turned out? Mm, I thought I'd like impress every time I'd show them raw footage. I've had more than once where they were like kind of turned off by it. They were
Mm.
worried. They're like, how's this gonna look good? Like, and then after editing, they are like, oh, you made it look so good. Like, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, just giving client like stuff that they can misinterpret. Like with one client, I was discussing how I'm so grateful for mirrorless cameras being such a small format and not those big bulky cameras from 20, 30 years ago. And that person ended up giving me a review saying, despite his small gear, he does a professional job. And I had to like comment something to like salvage the impression. Like, thank you for noticing that I'm using a GoPro with my professional equipment. Uh, so, yeah, always be
Yeah.
careful what you discuss with clients.
Yeah. Don't show them like raw S-Log 3 or like ungraded footage and they're like, oh, it's also gray and washed out. They don't realize
That is
that.
something
Yeah.
interesting, actually, because some clients ask you for raw footage. They still expect you to do the video edit, but they want the raw footage. But if it involves color grading a log or a raw file, yeah, it's like you're just complicating yourselves, my dudes.
Dude,
Like I
simplify.
like this one wedding that I edited, it was
Mm.
super shaky. I had to stabilize the whole thing because I made poor decisions on how to film it. And it was S-Log. So when
Mm.
the bride and groom are like, "Yeah, we just want to have the raw footage to, just just go through it and see the stuff that didn't make the cut, and they're probably seeing this shaky,
Shit.
really washed out, gray, monotone looking thing. And they're like, what is this?
Like, oh gosh.
You asked for the raw.
Yeah, you gave it to him.
I gave it raw.
All right, should we give a few tips on advancing as a freelancer?
Yeah. So, hmm, I have to think about this one. Do you want to do the first one while I think?
Okay, well, I think last week Cole, our guest, said it best when he said networking and building relationships is
Hmm.
like the most important thing you can do as a freelancer. So try and put yourself in situations where you're with other videographers and really don't just like do your job, but also focus on kind of the meta job, which is like getting to know everybody there
Mm-hmm.
and stepping out of your comfort zone sometimes if you're more of a shy or
Mm.
um, you know,
Introvert,
just like introvert.
like me.
If you
I suck at
like,
socializing.
yeah. Uh, so if you can kind of step out of your comfort zone, if you're more like Dorin and you kind of just, plant yourself behind the camera, if you can like try and open up a bit and you've already got a common interest in that you're filming stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You like video, build that network, and that will open up so many opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
not only just for learning from them, but also working with them again, getting referrals, um,
Oh yeah.
just kind of like,
So this is kind of assuming that you're kind of like you have gear and you have a bit of portfolio to get to that point. But that doesn't mean you can't start doing that when you just start out. You can still do that, but make sure to follow up with those people as your work progresses. So for example, what I'm referring to here specifically, when I first started out and I met videographers, they were like, "Oh, that's your gear and this is your work." Okay. So they like entertained me a little bit, but they didn't invite me to help out with too many gigs compared to after they saw me like, "Oh, I got a new camera. Oh, now I got two cameras. Oh, this is the type of work that I'm doing now and this is how I've developed my creative side or my whatever side, you know?" So like now if I'm meeting a new videographer and I start talking about, yeah, this is my setup, this is what I do, um that can lead to an opportunity for a gig faster than if I met that same person when I was just starting out and maybe they're not interested in someone that's like has nothing to offer. Unless you're really good at socializing, which I'm not.
mm,
So that's kind of the tricky part. Like I'll like socializing with videographers. You're right. For me, it's a bit more easy because we have talking points. That's why I can do this podcast with you because I have talking points that we agree on and we understand. But I've been in situations where I have had to socialize with other industries at business networking events, and I still, there's an art, and I still am not even close to even comprehending it, let alone applying
mm,
it. The art of not just going in front of another guy like, oh, you own a plumbing business? Do you need a video? It's like, you can't just sell yourself like that. You can't just pitch it like that. You have to
mm,
strike up a conversation, and I don't even know how to explain it, but I know I'm not doing it right.
mm.
There's networking with other industries and trying to get them to buy your product. They're just doing the same thing. I've had so many awkward conversations where it's like, "What do you guys do?" "Oh, we repair like appliances. So if you ever need a fridge fixed, call us up." I'm like, "Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you guys ever need a video, yeah, hit me up. Here's my business card. Here's my portfolio." And the conversation just ends, and it's like zero positive impressions were made either side.
Yeah.
Like if my fridge does break, I'm not calling those people probably.
It's like, yes, you did the information exchange, but there was no common ground. There was no
Yeah,
emotional connection. There was no
yeah.
relationship.
As those Craigslist said, I wasn't fun. I wasn't a go getter. I wasn't.
Mm.
looking for experience. So yeah, networking is a great way. I agree, but also you need to know how to do it. It's not just like if you just plop yourself in a networking event and you don't know how to network. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just gonna be staring at your shoes, playing with your lanyard, you
I was
know,
just
I don't
hanging
know.
out by the bar, just waiting for when is this thing over? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. A quick side note here. Actually, another weird thing about me with social events, I actually hate them. Not just because of. Hold on, hear me out.
Doran, I knew this.
No, 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 no. You didn't know this other part, or maybe you did, and I don't remember discussing it.
Hmm.
I hate. I am the type of person that I hate being in loud environments. Like
Hmm.
if you're right in front of me, but there's loud music, like really loud, and we kind of have to shout to each other, and you're not shouting, so I have to read lips. Even if I read lips and I can kind of hear you, my brain actually focuses on the loudest thing, and I hate those situations. Like my wife knows this because I don't like eating at a crowded food court because of that. Like I can't even hear her because I'm my brain is just too distracted by like the hum, the noise, the whatever around me. So like I like more quiet setting or more smaller intimate um networking events. I do really badly. Like physically my brain can't comprehend a conversation if it's happening right in front of me, if it's like a large like party type of networking.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's just me.
Maybe that's where you need to hold your handheld like field recorder with your headphones and then put it right up to someone's mouth so it's like ASMR right in your ears.
Yeah, yeah. When I re-listen to it, I am able to focus on the voice then. That's so weird, man. Whoa, I'm so weird.
Yes, Doran, you're a special flower.
I am
Very
Dorin.
unique.
Dorin the video flower.
All right, what's another one besides networking to
Yeah,
advance?
thank you, Nate. Thank you. Get me out of this one. I don't want to talk about networking. I don't want to think about it. It's like a hard to swallow pill for me that I'm choking on. One thing that I think we touched on when we did episode 5 with Victor was advertising and kind of marketing.
Hmm.
Um, so that like I can speak from experience. Yeah, advertising's definitely helped me. Social media activity is supposed to help you. I'm probably not doing that too correctly.
Hmm.
But a couple of other videographers have mentioned that blogs, and also a couple of IT people have mentioned that if you do blogs where you're discussing video and industry stuff, that somehow attracts more traffic to your website. Um, so that's something that I would want to do, but I don't have time to do currently. Um, yeah, and everything that Victor said, episode 5. I have to rewatch it. I can't remember it now.
Yeah, well, blogs can do two things. They can make it so that Google will read your blog posts and analyze that for making your site more relevant in search results. So
Hmm.
if you're and so it can get you the SEO, but also if someone's reading it and it's speaking to them, it can establish you as like an expert in your field. So if you actually know what you're
Hmm.
talking about and you're sharing that valuable information, that can be like, oh, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. I want this guy to film because he can actually explain why stuff is a certain way or why he does things the way he does, and that makes sense to me. And that sounds
Hmm.
like he actually knows what he's talking about.
And you can plug yourself at the end. So let's say
Yeah.
a client's Googling, like, okay, it's COVID, we have to start doing live streams. And they might search how to do a live stream. Maybe you'll show up with your business page, or maybe you'll show up with your blog page explaining your live streaming setup, make it seem really complicated, which it is. Um, and then at the end, say, Dorin the videographer specializes in live streams. You like what you
Yeah.
read? I can do this for you. So yeah, yeah, blogs.
And social media is something that I've kind of picked up the last 3 or 4 months.
Hmm.
that I've really tried to focus more on because I was more like, I just don't want to touch it.
Yeah,
But
it is a time investment, and it's also you need to be organized and have like regular scheduled, interesting, diverse content. You can't just post the same thing a dozen times. It has to be different.
mhm.
It's it's a full-time job. That's why some people have that as a job thing, like social media marketer.
But besides just promoting yourself, it's another form of networking. You know, you hate those big, loud, crowded things. Social media networking would be like in your wheelhouse there, Doran.
Are you
Can
talking
do
about
it
Twitter?
all. Or Instagram. Instagram is
You
huge.
have been super active on Instagram and you've gotten a lot of attention on Instagram, yeah. I've noticed that. Right on, Nate.
Yeah, I've gotten a few gigs just from like talking, following other videographers, and they repost your stuff. Like, if you can
Wait,
get into Instagram,
you've gotten gigs from Instagram?
yeah, there's one photographer who I only met from following her on Instagram and messaging her, and she saw that I did video. She's like, "Hey, do you want to do behind the scenes for me?" And I was like, "Okay, can you take some professional, like, do a photo shoot with me because I need some professional photos done for like marketing material." And she's like, "Sure." So we did like a kind of a trade, and like I had never met that person before.
Wow.
I met them to like do that shoot, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. That's like the power of social media in good ways.
Nice.
Yeah,
Is that something that's still in the works or is that done?
we shot a couple days ago, and
Oh,
now I'm editing the video and she's editing the photos.
is
So follow me on Instagram at Nate J Dixon, and you can see the photos, and we'll definitely post. I don't know if she's gonna use it as like a Instagram reel or IGTV or what, but yeah, some BTS of her shooting.
dude, the second you said follow me on Instagram, the lower third had a little arrow to your website animate like
Oh,
right then. Yeah. You're so in the zone right now, dude.
you can't
That's
even see
awesome.
that.
I'm looking
Yeah,
forward
so
to it.
yeah, it was fun.
I still haven't had time to edit the BTS you did for me, which looks awesome, by the
Ah,
way.
no thanks. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to have free time again, maybe in 6 weeks. Um, yeah, advertising, social media, blogs. Um, we kind of touched, I think we kind of touched on this from one of our very first, like first or third podcast, but like actually with Victor, we delved deeper into your
Episode 5.
branding. Yeah, episode 5. Branding, your image, the first impression you give someone that lands on your portfolio or your Instagram or your website. So I've actually
Mhm.
had a client, a higher profile client. Ooh, I just got an email. Is it from the people? Oh, it is. Okay, so nice. Great. Now, see, I checked the email before going to sleep, so now I'm gonna think about it and instead
All
of
right,
just like,
Doran.
yeah, there you go. I'm still
Stop
doing.
working for that slave driver boss of yours.
Yeah, man. I actually had a high profile company reach out to me to film something for them, and when they saw that I replied with my email, which was like dorn.business@gmail.com, literally the person was like, why do you have a Gmail account? Why don't you have a business account? I'm like, it is my business account. It's dorn.business. And he's like, but it's at Gmail, whatever, it doesn't matter. And at that point, I'm like, is this guy just like doesn't know what to pick on me, or is this a real problem? So then I went and I looked at every other videographer that I know, what email they use, and yeah, they're all at their company.
Hmm.
Like for you, it would be at natedixonmedia.com. That
So
would
what would
be
I do? Nate at Nate Dixon Media.
no, you do video or info or contact at Nate Dixon
Hmm.
Media. That's what I'm doing. I did video at
Uh,
Dorin.ca. Other people even have like invoicing or payables at whatever, like
hmm.
depending on how big you are or how many different emails you need.
So for you, Doran, that's like in the credits of a movie where it's like produced by, directed by written by, and it's all you.
Well, it's all my company, right? I went
Yeah.
with a, we touched on this, I think, in the first episode. I went with a name that's more personable, more relatable, more, I'm not a big corporation, I'm a guy, I'm a freelancer, I'm a solo entrepreneur. Um, but for you, Nate Dixon Media, it could, who knows, maybe your wife will become your secretary or your assistant, accountant, whatever, and she'll have her own email that'll be you know help@natedixon.com, and she answers all the logistics questions or all the scheduling. She does the scheduling for you. Who knows, man?
Who knows?
Yeah.
I've also seen hello at whatever. That seems to be a popular email.
Hmm.
Like, reach out to us. Hello at Sky and Tree Films.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be cool if I would be hiring. I would probably do that.
Hmm.
Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
just a
so
little more informal.
yeah.
That's their branding.
So yeah, I couldn't believe it when a client was like telling me about my email tag, but then I immediately switched to Google Suite, and
Sweet Google.
I like replied email him from my at Dorin.ca account. I'm like, so to follow up, and I did get the gig. I don't know if it was because of that, but looking back, it does create a better impression when I email people.
Mm.
It's also easier to tell people to email me because I just say video@dorin.ca instead of being like dorin.business@gmail.com. Um, and also like your business name. Some people go for really wacky names, and I'm just curious how they got off and were taken seriously with a wacky name for a business name. So I don't know. My personal, if you want to play it safe, don't pick a goofy, kooky name like Rampaging Monkey Productions. I'm I don't know if that exists. It probably exists if we Google
Probably.
it. Probably not in Canada. That would be a massive coincidence. But I just threw out what I was thinking in my head. Rampaging Monkey Media. Is there such a thing, Nate? You're looking it up.
No, I just see Rampage, the 2018 film.
Yeah. So there you go. Probably that's
But
why
a
no
big
one's
monkey.
using that.
Yeah.
Um, Nate Dixon Media is a nice name. If you would have gone for Unicycle Extraordinaire Media or whatever, like, Frisbee Golfing Unicycler,
Hmm.
LOL Media, you probably might not get taken seriously. Maybe you
Mm.
started your business as, or your nickname, your trade name, goofing off with your friends. It's never too late to switch your business name, especially if you're picking up more clients and higher profile. And the
Mm.
last thing I'll point out here with the branding and your image is your portfolio, your first impression, your website, stuff that you're displaying, or the however your clients are contacting you, Instagram. What's the first thing that they see? So if you have a really good looking music video clip that you shot, but you're aiming for weddings, I don't know if you're gonna get those wedding gigs as much as if you focused on, like, okay, you got the music gig because you needed the money and you wanted to do it, but if you want to focus on weddings and you're not getting any, see if you can give one at a discount or do one, I don't know, maybe do a quick one for free just to have some, but make it really elaborate or something. Like I think people need standout portfolio pieces if they want to specialize in a niche or
Oh,
in a
definitely.
specific branch of
Yeah.
video.
Hmm. I'd agree with that for sure.
Well, I don't know. That's all I can think of for advancing yourself as a videographer. Um, I guess one thing I forgot to say is there's also the option if you're just starting out to just ask to shadow an established videographer and co-partner, kind of what you were saying you did with
Mm.
that photographer. That was just a one-off thing, service for service, but you can go to a established videographer and say, hey, do you need an assistant? I'm looking to get a foot in the industry. I want to pick up some corporate experience, see how you deal with clients, see how your setup is, until I get running off the ground. So that's doable, I think.
Yep, definitely a good plan. Kind of, and being coachable.
Hmm.
Like, that's a big part of that too. Having a good attitude, that goes a long way.
Hmm.
And of course, just doing good work.
Yeah.
That's a good way to advance. So,
Hmm.
all these other things are important, but obviously, if your videos aren't good and there's mistakes and lots of terrible stuff in there, that's not going to advance you very far.
Hmm. Yeah. All
Mr.
right.
Silver OC.
Yes, Mr. Dixon. Yeah, it's been an interesting set of lessons we've learned from all of these, but yeah, let us know down in the comments if what other lessons you've had learned that you would like to share with us that you just wish someone would have told you when you started.
Mm,
These were the ones that most profoundly impacted us.
yeah. I try and learn as much as I can from Dorin because he was born in the 80s. I was born in the 90s.
Yeah,
So he's got
I
so
got a
much more
decade
experience.
advance on him. Yeah, that '80s knowledge.
He's got that 80s kid
When
vibe.
when were you born?
92.
Yeah, you're like the bottom of the '90s. I'm the top of the '80s, like '89. We're 3 years apart, or two and a half, whatever. But you
Yeah,
like to call me the '80s kid.
I do.
'80s kid media. There you go.
Oh, man. There you go.
Actually, that would be really good for like a music thing. Never mind.
Yeah.
It's not that wacky.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, yeah, leave a comment about some lessons that you wish you knew ahead of time.
hmm.
And like Doran said, any topics you want us to talk about. And be sure to subscribe to not miss an episode of the Nate and Doran podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever you use to listen to podcasts. This has been Nate and Doran. Thank you for watching and listening.